Today on Locked On Red Wings, a sloppy, chaotic game in Detroit as Pittsburgh comes out on top 2-1.
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and we're available wherever you get your podcasts. Scotty, the Red Wings lost 2-1 to the Pittsburgh Penguins on Monday night at Little Caesars Arena. It was another game where there wasn't a ton of NHL vets in the lineup for Detroit, but there were even fewer for Pittsburgh. And I mean, we'll talk about it. Pittsburgh kind of dominated this game. Detroit outshot Pittsburgh, but that was completely deceiving. Kind of the 180 of the last time these two teams played in Detroit, where Detroit came out on top. It wasn't as close as the score indicated. This time, it was the same, but the other way around. Pittsburgh was definitely the team on top.
Yeah, well, it was weird because if you look at the team's stats, Detroit outshot Pittsburgh, they out-hit Pittsburgh, they won in the face-off circle over the course of the game, and they were equal in PIMs. Like, if you just looked at the box score, you wouldn't think that, you know, one team was clearly better than the other, or that Pittsburgh certainly was clearly better than Detroit. But if you watched, you certainly understood and took away from the game that Pittsburgh was in the offensive zone nearly the entire game, certainly the first and third periods. And yeah, so I mean, like you said, it's not a game that there's a ton to take out of just because of the personnel that was used. But I also think that you're continuing to see the I don't know, like mindset, I guess I'll say, that's going to be implemented in the regular season with the NHLers. You continue to see that kind of stuff, especially in the neutral zone. So
yeah, we'll talk about that throughout the episode. In segment one, obviously, we'll do our typical difference makers, although it's going to be tough to pinpoint difference makers in this hockey game because it felt kind of just like a scatter shot. Like everything was happening all the time, all at once. Nothing ever felt planned in this hockey game. It felt like it was just constantly bad passes and trying to recover from bad passes. Segment two, we'll continue to talk about, notable players from this game, storylines, and in segment three, we'll talk about stuff. We obviously will talk about Danielson at some point as well. But Scotty, why don't you lead us off with what you saw as your difference maker in this hockey game?
Wow. I mean, what a great question, really.
Really tough one.
I think I don't know. I guess I'll say, I'll say John Gibson. And I know that, like 900 save percentage, he wasn't a world beater by any stretch. But I think that, as we talk about, and we already have alluded to, that Pittsburgh was the better team on the ice and was constantly in the Wings' offensive zone. They did a really good job of cycling. Again, they didn't get a ton of shots on net necessarily, but they just had possession of the puck for seemingly the entire game. So I think that obviously is a factor there. But yeah, like I think ultimately Gibson kind of made it so that the game was at least close, despite the fact that the Wings could not score and could not retain possession of the puck. And so I'm going to give a tip of the cap to Gibson.
Yeah, I think Gibson's probably the only one that deserves to be a positive player of the game, difference maker. Obviously, you alluded to it there. He only faced 20 shots, but when we get deeper into this, we'll talk about the quality of shots for both teams. And in his 20 shots, Pittsburgh accumulated a expected goals of 2.73. So the expected goals against for John Gibson was 2.73 in all situations, which means that he had goals saved above expected in all situations of 0.73. So he made more saves than the data would suggest he should, given the situations he was put upon and shots that he faced. And I think that was reflective in what we saw. The first goal, the Kindle goal, it was a pretty bad pinch by Ian Mitchell. He, in the neutral zone, decided to attack the offensive blue line, but he was kind of nowhere in no man's land. So when he decided to attack, it was really easy to touch that puck over for a developing 2-on-1. ASP played it properly, but when you have a 2-on-1, it becomes kind of a toss-up on whether or not you're going to effectively attack it. Ian Mitchell and Alex DeBrincat were just too far behind the play to catch up and make an impact, and Kindle just rifled it past. It was a really, really good shot from a high-danger area past John Gibson. That was their first shot of the game, Scotty. And then the second goal in the second period, that was another... It was a developing play. Same group, by the way. Same forward line, same defensive pair. ASP chased the puck carrier, pressuring him along the boards, doing what he could. 2-on-1 developed because no forward got back in time to pick up the second man on this 2-on-1 developing. Ian Mitchell on a 2-on-1. It was a weird bounce off of, was it Hollander's skate back to Novak. It was kind of just unlucky. Unlucky result, but it was the result of, again, defensive lapses in the defensive zone. It wouldn't have happened if a forward had gotten back to cover their guy in time. But so it's hard to pin either of those on John Gibson. And outside of those two goals, I thought he looked phenomenal, made several key saves to keep the Red Wings in the hockey game. As far as my difference maker, I got to give it to the Penguins. I got to give it to the Pittsburgh Penguins forecheck in particular. And it's something that we hinted at the start of the show. The Pittsburgh Penguins forecheck was kind of exactly like we want the Red Wings forecheck to look like. It was aggressive. It never gave the Red Wings an opportunity to breathe. I thought the Wings, for the most part, were on their heels the entire game. They didn't have time to think. They didn't have time to make a smart pass. Everything was in the feet. Everything was a little bit too far ahead. And the Pittsburgh Penguins never missed an opportunity to capitalize, at least to the extent that they were able to keep the puck in the offensive zone and continue to cycle. Again, they didn't develop a lot of shots, but when they did get opportunities, they were high danger, just constantly pressuring, waiting for Detroit's defense to break down. Again, like we've been saying, preseason, it can't get too high, can't get too low. This roster we saw today was nowhere near what the Red Wings lineup is going to look like on game one, so I'm definitely not concerned, but when you're talking about reasons why the Red Wings lost, I got to give it to Pittsburgh's tenacity in this one because they were all over Detroit all game long.
Yeah, I think it's a great point. I almost said the Tigers. The Wings, I think in this game, it was interesting to see because you're right. I mean, they were on their heels, literally. Like they were just in their own zone, right? And there's not
actually skating backwards on their heels.
Right, like literally on their heels. It was a situation where they just couldn't get out of their own zone. I mean, I talked about it already a little bit earlier. The Penguins cycling was really good, and they just kept possession of the puck for a large majority of this game. I think the Wings forecheck is an interesting talking point so far this preseason because it was really good early and it looks like it's kind of slowed up later. Now, again, like personnel groups are changing. There wasn't a ton of NHL talent on the roster in this game. But I think that, to your point, is something that the Wings are trying to implement a lot more of and that they want to be a lot more effective and efficient in. It's just in this game, I mean, they even had forechecks that just like completely blew up in their face, to be honest. Like they had a couple of really aggressive, especially in the neutral zone where they were trying to be really aggressive and go after the puck handler and then just left the back door completely wide open. And, the Penguins were able to just kind of waltz in front of the net and get a high danger shot on net. So, yeah, I mean, again, part of it's probably personnel that was in this game. Part of it, I'm sure, is just the game flow. They did not have a very effective game in just having possession at any point. Mm-hmm. So that certainly is going to hurt you in all facets as well. But, I think that's an area that we are going to continue to monitor. And they had no answer for it against them in this one.
Well, and I think, obviously one big one that you've already mentioned is the personnel group. I think the other big factor, too, is like now there's a little bit of tape on how the Red Wings are going to play offense. In those first two preseason games, no one knew what to expect out of this hockey team because it was the first two preseason games. The groups were crazy. Nobody knew anyone. But the Red Wings came out forechecking hard. Well, now if going into a game, this team's going to forecheck at every opportunity, you can plan around that. And I do wonder if some of it was that. and how much of it was the personnel groups, we're not going to know until the regular season gets underway. 5 down, 3 more to go when it comes to preseason hockey. So, I mean, honestly,
so many.
I could wrap up the thoughts on this episode there, but on this game there, but we got 2 more segments we got to fill, so we'll do at least one more. There's a couple other notes from this game that we can talk about that
There's
I think
some
are
off the
appropriate.
ice stuff too, Danielson and whatnot. So
yeah, we'll probably fill that in the stuff category that we have. I've completely ripped from your show. So Scotty, why don't we head to break 2? When we return, segment 2, Locked On. Break 1 for segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings coming up.
Good job, man.
All these numbers, man. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Scotty, you're going to want to put your fingers in your ears for this one. I was recently the beneficiary of a FanDuel bet. I put $10 on the Cleveland Guardians to win the division, and I ended up winning $80. That was what you call an emotional hedge, my friends, but I could have made that profit without FanDuel. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Did you plug your ears, or did you hear that?
I did not plug my ears. I don't listen to things you say, so.
That it could not be more apparent than to anyone who's ever listened to our podcast. Segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. All right, Scotty, as far as other notable performers or storylines from this hockey game, who do you got?
Well, I mean, we can give credit to the goal scorer. Shiner, he's just an organization favorite, man, and obviously is never going to be like a high-end NHL player, but continues to prove and showcase his value in the organization year in and year out. Just a guy that they know is going to be a rock solid player in Grand Rapids, kind of be a leader in Grand Rapids, and I couldn't be happier that he continues to get that opportunity to just stick with that unit and help mold, the future Red Wings, if you will.
How about this for your top 3 performers on offense in this game by Corsi for percentage? John Leonard, 69% Corsi for percentage. Sheldon Dries, 62% Corsi for percentage. And Dominic Shine, 53% Corsi for percentage at 5-on-5. So all 3 AHL depth guys, break glass in case of emergency call-ups, gonna play with Grand Rapids, be veteran leaders there, and probably contribute on the score sheet quite a bit there. Led the way for Detroit in this game, in a game where there were some NHLers and one very good NHL line for the Red Wings playing. So obviously, big caveat to that is a lot more to prove for guys like this. This is an actual tryout for them than it is for Patrick Kane at age 36, future Hall of Famer, who's just trying to get his legs underneath him. But when it comes to preseason games and you're trying to look for silver linings, having those try-hard guys actually have a positive impact on the score sheet is definitely a feel-good moment. And, Ian Mitchell, I pointed out earlier in segment 1, for having a poor pinch that led to a goal-scoring rush the other way, but he also made a really nice backhand pass from along the boards to find Dominic Shine out front late in the third period, where Dominic Shine made a nice move on Yari to score that goal. So, Ian Mitchell overall has had a really nice preseason. I think it's probably something that we've under-talked about. Obviously, what?
What? You said
No,
under-talked about, and I just thought that was funny. Everything's okay.
Underappreciated thus far? How's that for you?
Under-talked about?
Not talked about enough. Just combining a couple different phrases. Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's going to make the NHL team, but he's instilled enough confidence in me that if enough injuries were to occur and you were to call him up, that he would be serviceable as your 6th or 7th defenseman.
Sure.
So, yeah, it was nice. That's about all much analysis you're going to be able to pull out of me on that game. Probably already too much.
No, I agree.
For those performances.
again, it's something where you're looking for individual performances from a handful of guys, and you're looking at how the X's and O's of the team go.
Right.
Like the penalty kill was fine, I guess, if but again,
Yeah, sure.
we're
Personnel.
not taking right. Like those aren't the guys that are going to be at the NHL penalty kill. So who really cares?
I mean, really, all you're looking for is what kind of system are they running in this instance. And I mean, mission accomplished. On the second penalty kill, Comfer and Mazur were in the offensive zone. Both of them had the puck, and neither of them wanted to shoot. They kept trying to pass to one another. At one point, even Mickey was like, I don't know why you just don't shoot it there, because they were in low. But it was 2 for 2 on the PK. It was good. Talking about Comfer and Berggren, let's lump him in there. Berggren's had a couple flashy moments where he's come close to a goal, but hasn't really been on the score sheet. But outside of that, I haven't really seen a lot from this preseason, period. Like, I'm not saying good or bad. They've kind of just been invisible out there throughout the preseason. And again, reiterating, you don't want to get too high or too low, but you want your NHL veterans to make their presences felt. And JT Compher, especially, is a guy who 2 seasons ago had, nearly 50 points with the Detroit Red Wings. He was centering the second line. And now I'm watching games where he's on the ice, and I'm not really seeing a lot of positive value. And this is maybe, again, I'm projecting because he had a bad year last year. So I'm looking for him to make an impact and make me feel the other way, and I'm not seeing it. It's not that he had a bad game, and same with Berggren, but I also didn't feel their impacts as much as I was hoping to. So I felt that was maybe worth noting as well.
I disagree. I don't have too much else to add either. This is a scenario we are waiting to be proven otherwise. And just so far in the preseason, it's been maybe underwhelming.
I thought Carter Bear had a couple nice game moments in this hockey game. One shift in particular late in the second period, he was just a hound for the puck, which is something that we've very much been sold on, right? That's one of the big things is he's a heavy forechecker. He gets into the gritty areas, and he basically single-handedly kept possession for the Red Wings for like a minute between the neutral zone and the offensive zone because he just kept engaging in board battles, winning the puck and trying to get it deep. Unfortunately, no real opportunities came of it. He did almost have an opportunity himself, but I'm trying to recall that if he whiffed on it or if the shot got deflected. But eventually the puck did find him in the high in the offensive zone for him. But speaking of that too, Scotty, when we were talking about, because we've hinted at it, and I want to talk about it a little bit here, we've been mentioning how all the box score data would indicate that the Red Wings were the better team in this hockey game. But if you watched the game itself, Pittsburgh dominated the whole game, cycled in the offensive zone, had the puck the entire time. Here is piece of data that is like the dagger in the nail in the coffin for our argument towards that. At 5-on-5, Scotty, how many high danger chances do you think Pittsburgh had, and how many high danger chances do you think the Red Wings had?
I'm gonna go 6-0.
14.
6-1.
Okay.
You say 14?
Well, 14 for Pittsburgh, 3 for Detroit all game long at 5-on-5.
So I feel like from a ratio perspective, I was actually pretty close. The numbers were just way lower.
Let's look at a preseason heat map.
You want to give me credit for that? That would be 12-2. That's pretty darn close to 14-3.
If you need to pat yourself on the back for that, Scotty, go right ahead. But I'm not going to give you credit for that.
Watching the game, I just didn't think there was that many high danger opportunities. But alas.
For those of you who aren't watching on YouTube, look at this heat map. Literally can't if you're not watching. I just said for those of you who
if you're
aren't
not watching on YouTube, why don't you look at this heat map with us, dude? Yeah, that's great.
Let me describe this heat map. The dark blue for Pittsburgh, which indicates where their shot attempts came from, because this is a Corsi map. Actually, this is a Fenwick map. It's unblocked shot attempts. This is the dark blue is literally right in front of the net. For Detroit, it's basically where ASP was shooting from all game long along the blue line, which I thought ASP had a pretty nice game. Offensively, again, the defensive woes, I thought he put himself in the correct positions. It just didn't go his way. Offensively, he was, I mean, say it again, right? Like, straddled that blue line like crazy. He was really good walking that line, had a couple rifle shots that just barely missed. But yeah, you got to have better opportunities in the net front besides what's happening here for Detroit.
I mean, that dark blue circle, that is an atrocity. That's really brutal. Yeah. So enough said there.
Yeah. Scotty, let's head to a second break. When we return, we will finish up this conversation, recapping the game. Stay tuned for that. Segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings. All right, Scotty, we're officially into the stuff, so this is where we can talk about some of the non-game related things that happened today or since yesterday when we recorded. One of those things is Nate Danielson is going to be out for an unspecified amount of time with an upper body injury. In the last game against Pittsburgh, Nate Danielson was cross-checked in the back. On watching the play, I wouldn't have thought anything of it. It looked like a type of cross-check that you see 1,000 times in a hockey game. I don't think it was particularly dirty. Again, you see it 1,000 times in a hockey game, but it clearly hit him in a soft spot, and he is recovering. We have been given really no insight into how long this is going to be, but how I inferred it based on how McClellan said, I would think a couple weeks. But that is just me strictly inferring on the very vague nature that McClellan brought it to the attention. But if it was day-to-day, I felt like he would have said just, it's going to be day-to-day.
I mean, really, the only thing that I've taken out of this is that he's not going to play again in the preseason, and he's not going to make the opening night roster.
Right.
That doesn't mean that it's serious. That doesn't mean he's going to be out for 4 months. You know, he could be back in Grand Rapids for, the start of their season. Yeah. It doesn't mean that it has to be some super long thing, but I find it hard to believe that they are going to, they're going to rush him, quote unquote, back, play him in a meaningless preseason game, and then, force him on to make his NHL debut coming off of, an injury,
right,
etc. That's pretty much all I took out of it is, okay, that eliminates the possibility of him making this team out of camp, and we probably don't see him again in the preseason.
Which is a huge blow to us as fans, because this is a guy that, I've been on the Nick Danielson hype train, all off season. I put him, ranked him 13th in the Red Wings depth chart. Did. So it sucks. It really does. He'll be fine. Like, I'm not really all too worried about it unless other news comes out later. I think he's going to be, like you said, he'd be out until the end of the preseason. He's going to start the season with Grand Rapids, but he looked like a guy who was ready for the NHL, and I thought he had a legitimate chance to make the roster with his skill set. He looks NHL ready, so that's where it sucks, because I thought this was a guy who could contribute at the NHL level, but now he is likely going to, because of the recovery timeline, whatever it may be, will probably start in Grand Rapids. So we just wish nothing for the best, but Nate Danielson in his recovery. I think the other thing, Scotty, to talk about is the fact that in this preseason game that we just watched, Moritz Seider was the only player wearing a letter. And this was a game that also featured Patrick Kane and JT Compher, two other players who have worn the letter for Detroit at different times in their tenure here. So this is the second time this has happened where Moritz Seider has worn an A. As far as to my knowledge, I think it's only the second game that he's played. I have yet to see Compher, Cop, and Kane at that to that point wear a letter at this point in the preseason. Lucas Raymond has also worn the letter A. I don't think I've seen anyone else wear the letter A this far into preseason as of yet. It's feeling like Moritz Seider and Lucas Raymond are finally the A's for the Detroit Red Wings. Because if you were still trying to feel out who your letters were, or if you were assigning letters based on whatever the leaders were that preseason game, you would have other players wearing them. So the fact that no matter who's playing or who's not playing, Moritz Seider and Lucas Raymond are consistently wearing the A's, I am speculating, again, my speculation, and you may agree with it, that they're the A's for this hockey team, just pending formal announcement. I
would agree with that. And I'm super pumped about it. We can Maybe we'll have like a moment of silence for our annual summer segment on who's going to wear the A's every year, because that's been a free like episode or two every offseason for 3 years running now. And
who says it's got to die?
Well, I mean, if that's the case, you got your 3 guys under contract for the next 6 to 8 years, all wrapped up there. I
don't underestimate the power of off-season content.
Okay, well, Brian's gonna do a solo show debating who's gonna wear the letters going forward. But no, I think that's awesome, and it's something that, I mean, as I've said a lot throughout the summer, if that's the future, that's a very encouraging sign that, again, your 3 foundational, like pillars,
right,
are your 3, locker room leaders.
Them turning into locker room leaders was something that we were very hopeful for, because the talent was already there and we could see the talent developing. But and maybe we're overstating the importance of the players who wear the letters, right? There's been comments made in the past by, Derek Lalonde when he was head coach about how even though you don't have a letter, you can still be a leader. And I do think that there is truth to that. So maybe us as fans put too much stock into it, but I also think that it matters a heck of a lot to the players who get the letters, right? That's an honor for them to get it. So for the, like you said, young foundation, the pillars of your future, to not just be the leaders on the ice, but to then be rewarded by becoming the leaders off the ice. And you're not rewarded to becoming the leader off the ice. You're rewarded for being a leader off the ice. This is them getting recognized for all they do. And it's great for them. And I think it's important for the organization moving forward that this becomes a formality. Again, it's not a formality yet. They haven't formally introduced it, but it seems like it's pointing in that direction, because to my knowledge, no one else besides those 2 has worn an A at this point in the offseason. If there has been, not offseason, preseason, if there has been, please let me know in the comments, because I also have the memory of a goldfish. But I know for a fact Kane and Comfort did not wear one, and that felt to me important, because if anyone's going to wear one besides Seider in this game, it felt like it was going to be Patrick Kane, and he didn't have one on his jersey. So that felt like a pretty big signal to me.
I would agree.
Scotty, Red Wings play again tonight by the time people are listening to this. They'll be playing the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, this game, if you looked at the Red Wings graphic that they released last week of the places you could watch the games, they did not list anything for this game. So I was under the belief there was no streams for this game, and I was like, I guess we're just recapping a box score. But it does appear that it's on ESPN Plus, because it is going to be locally broadcasted in Chicago. So I believe if you have an ESPN membership, you can get the Chicago feed. Just to put that out there as a PSA, there is a way to watch this hockey game, even if the Red Wings don't tell you how. It's a secret, apparently. Scotty.
It's secret. It's a secret.
Apparently.
Keep it on the download. Don't tell anybody.
Deal.
Yeah.
In Chicago, so I don't really know what to expect in terms of players. They played a lot of their Grand Rapids guys in this one without a lot of NHL talent, this last game that we just recapped. So maybe we do see more NHL vets. I mean, they still got a big roster they have yet to cut down, because they got 3 more of these games.
I hope we see, some NHL talent. I'd imagine we would. I mean, we've already played Chicago this preseason. Finney probably plays again in this one at a minimum.
No, I mean, they're giving Finney as many looks as he is. He played in this game too. I just didn't really think he did.
Yeah, no. I mean, nobody did offensively.
Right.
Like, again,
he wasn't bad, but
they didn't have the puck. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So that's about as much of a recap or a preview as you can do on a preseason hockey game. You know what's funny is we talked about this a little bit before we recorded, but going into the preseason, I was so amped to have so much hockey to talk about, because I was so burned out from off-season content. Like, full disclosure, guys, by the end of August, start of September, I'm like, I don't know. I'm starting to get run out of things to talk about, because there's, especially August, it's just dead news-wise. And so I was so pumped for preseason hockey, because I was like, we are going to have content every single day. We are 5 games into the preseason, and I'm like, is this over yet? Let's get to the real deal already. Like, I'm so glad they're going to 4 next year, mandated by the NHL, 4, because of the 84-game schedule, and the season's going to be starting earlier because of that. It's going to start in late September, I think I heard, instead of the first week of October. So 3 more of these. Grateful to have hockey that doesn't go unnoticed, but also let's get to the real deal already, man.
If I could speed it up, I would, man. I like, it is the amount of preseason games are. I think we'll have some cuts in the next few days to at least talk about. But
If they could do it on Wednesday when we record for Thursday, that'd be great.
yeah,
Be a nice content filler. Red Wings, if you're listening, please adhere to our schedule.
yeah, make our life easier. Thanks.
Honestly. All right, Scotty, any final thoughts?
We ball.
We do ball. We'll be back with a new episode tomorrow. Same time, same place. It's your team every day.
Every day.